Congressman Buddy Carter just came out of that event. He is the only pharmacist in all of Congress, and you've been at the forefront of the administration's crackdown on this growing epidemic. Thank you for joining us. As we understand it, I'm a little confused. I was told that this was going to be announced as a public health emergency. He's used the word national emergency several times. There is a very big difference between the two. Can you just clarify whether it's a public emergency or now a national emergency?
Well, what I heard him say was that it was a national public health emergency. I think that's what his intention was. But let me tell you, I could not be prouder. The president was spot on today. I am so impressed with his grasp of the problem here. I mean, he used personal stories. He talked about his own experiences. That is so powerful and so appropriate. I just can't tell you how impressed I am with the president right now.
You know, I used to work in Boston and I covered New Hampshire years ago. And even back then, New Hampshire was starting to have a problem. Donald Trump was the first presidential candidate to even bring that up nearly 2 years ago during the campaign. I looked at that. I said, that's impressive because nobody else was really talking about it. Chris Christie, very involved, of course, but Donald Trump was really the one. And now today he's brought a huge amount of attention to this crisis. But people are always saying, well, what does it do? Does it increase the money spent on helping addicts, of which there are now more than about 20 million in the U.S. today? What does it do to focus more tightly on the problem?
Well, that's a good point. You know, we've really got a twofold problem here. I mean, first of all, we've got to have education for public health officials, particularly doctors and pharmacists, about the proper prescribing of opioids and their proper use. But we've also got to address those very people that you're talking about, those who already are addicted, and how we get them back into society, how we get them treatment and therapy. Those are two distinct, different problems there, and both of them are going to require a lot of work.
Well, you could look at that as maybe the branches of this very, very difficult tree to climb. But what about the actual trunk? And by the way, I mentioned how Chris Christie of New Jersey had certainly gotten out front. And since the election, which he, of course, lost, he has really gotten on board this. I believe he's speaking right now, not too far from you on the other part of the White House lawn. But let's get to the actual trunk and the roots of this problem. Many of these opioids are well known to Americans. We can show them to you. OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, Demerol. And certainly well known to you, being the only pharmacist that serves in Congress, is treating addicts the answer, or does the fault lie with these drug companies that make and push them, while in many cases, sir, hiding their terribly addictive qualities?
Well, that is certainly something that has to be looked at. I mean, let's face it. It was not that long ago that Percocet was a standing order in hospitals. It was what you were given as a standing order when you were admitted to a hospital. That's a generation of physicians that we've got to retrain, if you will, that have to know just how addictive these medications are. Now, physicians are very smart people, obviously, but this is a whole different ballgame now of what we're talking about. The medications that are out there, the opioids, they are so addictive, particularly the immediate release opioids. They are just so addictive.
Congressman, all the more reason to really look at them. Purdue Pharmaceutical, not publicly traded, but it's already paid out millions in settlements and is now the subject of a federal probe into how it markets and, quite frankly, misleads the public about the dangers.
Well, you bring up a good point, because I've been on the pharmaceutical manufacturers. Look, I've witnessed over my career in pharmacy, I've witnessed miracles with the research and development that the pharmaceutical manufacturers have come up with. But they really need to fill in the gap. Right now, we've got ibuprofen and NSAIDs, and then you jump to the opioids, and there's really a gap in between, and they really need to address that.
My producers are going to kill me because we're way over here. But don't you, as a pharmacist, the pharmacy benefit managers out there?
Yes.
CVS Caremark and all the other ones out there, don't they need to monitor who's putting out big orders of these things, because it really should be limited?
You're absolutely correct. And listen, a lot of these insurance companies, a lot of these PBMs are not paying for some of these non-addictive treatments that are out there, and instead are paying for the cheaper opioids, pushing people toward that just to save money. And while they have done some good things in limiting the supplies of the opioids, still they need to be held accountable for what they're doing and not covering Lyrica and Neurontin and gabapentin and those kind of therapies that are non-addictive.
Well, there we have those. They're all down right now. Walgreen Boots, Rite Aid, McKesson, Cardinal Health, CVS. We're watching it. Representative Carter, thank you very much for joining. The only pharmacist, folks, in all of Congress. Good perspective here.